I tried to time this to get down here so that I'd be here a little bit before court ended. But I seem to have miscalculated because as I was getting on the subway, I saw some tweets that indicated that Stormy Daniels' testimony was done. And it seems like that's it for court for today, but we still might be able to catch some of the people that I want to talk to as they're leaving. I saw Norm Eisen on CNN or sitting there talking to them, you know. And I mean, this guy is just a cheap lawfare pimp selling garbage. I want to ask him a few questions. I mean, it's a stunning thing to observe. And of course, you know, the professional legal pundits, the Jonathan Turleys, the Greg Jarretts, all these people who are very experienced lawyers looking at all this, can't believe what they're seeing. And Norm Eisen, he's a lawyer who has been around for a long time. He was the U.S. ambassador to the Czech Republic, I think, some major country. Went to law school with Barack Obama, and he's the co-founder, as we've discussed previously, of that Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Surely this guy should know that a prostitute makes a terrible star witness. And some people get upset about that, you know. She's a sex worker, she's whatever. So fine, let's set that aside. This is a person who has previously made a statement that contradicts everything that she's saying now. I mean, just the other day, we were looking at this image of the letter that she signed. I was quite surprised by this earlier today. Lee was on Twitter saying that, you know, he presumes that there was a sexual relationship between Stormy Daniels and Trump. And he's saying, well, this letter is from 2018. And, you know, answer the question, Jason, why did Trump pay her 130 grand if he didn't have sex with her? I was really surprised. Now, we know that Lee is very, what's the word to use? You know, he's very sex worker positive. He enjoys defending the rights of sex workers, and that's his right to do. I'm not questioning that. Setting aside the fact that this is a person who would accept money for sex and would appear in adult movies doing the most intimate acts that most people would consider a compromise of her own morality for money, we don't need to argue that point. I want to talk specifically about this letter that she signed and the contradictory statements that she's made, and Lee's conclusion, frankly incorrect conclusion, that it means that Trump had sex with her. There was testimony today that seems to indicate that there were communications, at least between the lawyers, that there was a desire to bring some kind of lawsuit during the time that Trump was running for president, based on the understanding that just the existence of the lawsuit would be unfavorable, and it, you know, could say anything at all. The reason why I was defending this is not specifically because I'm defending Donald Trump, and the reason why I was so surprised by what Lee was saying is that I have become very familiar with the concept of people just making up lies about you, and I was introduced to the notion that putting those lies into a lawsuit is a form of lawfare, because there's things that you can say in a lawsuit that are considered privileged statements, which if you just said them on YouTube or in a magazine interview or something, look at this, a charging station right here in the middle of New York City. I haven't seen that before. And then we have an electric Grand Cherokee Trailhawk, plug NYC. I think that means something else in different neighborhoods. They should start advertising, yo, you need a plug? And see what they get. Now, yeah, people lying about you in lawsuits. So this is like George Webb's brother's profession, making up completely false crap, putting it into a lawsuit, and then going to every whatever is interested in his news resource, blogs and YouTube channels and Twitter handles, saying, oh, look, this lawsuit has accused Jason of X, Y, and Z. Why wouldn't we presume that that's what Stormy Daniels was intending to do to Trump that provoked this non-disclosure agreement? Just because somebody pays somebody hush money, as they call it, to sign a non-disclosure agreement doesn't mean they had sex with that person. It just means there's something that they have agreed the person will not disclose. So if Stormy Daniels is saying, hey, you know, we're going to sue you and we're going to allege that Trump had sex with her and all this and that, and Trump's lawyers say, yeah, but that's false, you're not going to get anywhere with that lawsuit, Stormy's lawyers could say, well, you say it's false, she says it's true, the court will adjudicate that. It'll certainly take from now until the election, and surely in 2015-16 timeframe, Trump was not as confident that he would win the election as he is right now. And it's possible that even just the notion of a lawsuit would have been so unfavorable. And don't forget, if somebody brings a nonsense lawsuit, it's just automatic expense. You're going to have to pay something. So maybe Michael Cohen said, oh, Mr. Trump, look, this woman's going to bring this lawsuit. Just pay her the 130 grand. It's way less than it would cost to defend a frivolous lawsuit. And at least you know it's going to go away. By the way, another component of lawfare is to attempt, and in a successful endeavor, to succeed in controlling the person's lawyer. So if Michael Cohen, did I say Flynn before? If Michael Cohen was in on this, and, you know, just as I allege my attorney, Jonathan Snyder, was in on the robbery that took place in the Emmys versus MSDI, you know, you start getting advice from a lawyer, even if he's a dunce like Michael Cohen, you're sort of deferential to the lawyer. You have a tendency to, now wait a minute, have the cops left? Maybe we can walk right in there. Let's see, because court is closed, maybe. So anyway, I think that if people want to enjoy the rights codified in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, you got to extend that to everybody. You can't just say, well, Trump probably did this, so let's convict him. He paid her, so he must have had sex with her. I disagree. I think that there's a lot of billionaires who get sued by a lot of people, and they wind up paying them to shut up and go away. No, I'm wrong, the cops are still there. So they're definitely not going to let me in. And then people were saying, oh, Lincoln Kareem went in with a bicycle, get a bicycle. No, I'm not going to do any of that. It's got to be either a proper press pass to walk in there properly, or to stand somewhere that I'm allowed to stand and get Norm Eisen when he's in some public space that I can speak to him. Because otherwise, even if I did get in there with a bike, first of all, I'm not Lincoln Kareem. How the police respond towards me versus him, I can't say. There's a lot of people in the NYPD who know who I am and don't like me. I don't know what Lincoln Kareem's situation is, but the point is, this whole entire thing is a setup, and that is how lawfare works. They construct these complicated, fake, sticky things where it's supposed to work that, you know, whichever direction you turn, they have some kind of, you know, stupid plan for how to get you. Yeah, I mean, now that I'm back here, I'm not sure what I was thinking. This is still going to be jammed up as far as accessing Norm Eisen goes, because that's what this is about. This is not about the security of the people inside the courthouse. They have a whole concrete building. What the hell is DOHMH? Department of, I don't even know. But we're not going to be able to get through here. Let's just see if Norm Eisen is even still here. See, these are all planted weirdos here doing God knows what. See if Norm is still there. That's my presumption, that these are planted weirdos. Norm might be gone. I might have missed Norm today. It's a tricky thing. Yeah, they got the cops right there with them. Right? So, I mean, get in there with all the bicycles you want. The second you start asking questions that they don't like, that guy's gonna come over and invite me to FO. Fuck you. Stupid idiot. People are like, oh, the cursing. I just have no patience for these maniacs. Now, did people see, I only put this on Twitter because it wasn't really a live stream. It was just an impromptu captured on my normal cell phone, not even through the regular, setup and everything. But I went Tuesday night over to FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology, and there was an emergency action. I saw it on Twitter. They were calling for some kind of mobilization, XYZ is happening, emergency mobilization. There's a union guy pissed off that his satellite trucks are not needed when people like me exist. But anyway, this whole thing was going on over there at FIT. Had to be an unlawful assembly if they called for an emergency. If you're not following me on X, please do. You can follow me at JG_CSTT. But this guy here was really getting in my face, super aggressive, much more so than normally hooligans are. And then I just happened to notice that the New York Post published this picture that a Venezuelan gang member had just been taken to Rikers Island. Here are these two idiots. They were texting a minute ago. And the dude looks remarkably like the Rikers Island prisoner. It got me thinking a lot about David Hawkins' theory. Remember about how the police were using prisoners and gang members to insert them into crime scenes and, carry out various criminal things. And why wouldn't they do that? I mean, we have a signed document from Andrew Weissman from 1998 where he did that. He took a criminal suspect, Felix Sater. He had been involved in a felony assault, stabbed a dude in the face, nerve damage and all kinds of stuff. And they signed him up to work for the FBI, to be a confidential human informant. And he became one of the most prolific assets, according to him, and sworn testimony that he gave to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence when Devin Nunes was in charge of that thing. Why didn't he get into any of this? He found the memo, the Nunes memo. What did that tell us, really? Where did that go? Nowhere. That's a limited hangout. That's a guy who's got just enough information so that you think he's doing something, but in fact he's done nothing. So that's Devin Nunes. But if they're going to sign a cooperation agreement with Felix Sater and turn a criminal into some kind of employee, some kind of informant, why wouldn't they do that with a Venezuelan gang guy that they just arrested earlier that day and say, hey, why don't you help us do whatever we're trying to do, become an undercover confidential human informant for the cops? I guess to do this, you really got to stake this thing out. Yeah, that's why one-man news operations are a little difficult to sort out. You got to really stake this area out. I mean, look at how tightly guarded they have this. Again, that's not to protect the courthouse. That's to prevent people from looking at the news. This is like North Korean style manufactured news by Norm Eisen and CNN and whoever has their little position over there. The police have decided that they get press credentials. Why is that? could be the same reason why the NYPD tells me just leave when I am lawfully present outside of FIT. It's 2 blocks from where I live. It's a public sidewalk. I've been paying taxes in New York City for like 34 years. Schmucks from Venezuela who just arrived haven't paid 1 damn cent. That's not their streets. Arguably, it's my street. And by the way, I'm not there in an unlawful assembly. I'm just a guy walking on the sidewalk. So the notion that the police would tell me just leave, rather than telling all of them just leave, that's not law enforcement. That is oppression and suppression. He's another idiot walking around doing nothing, listening to the radio, wringing his hands. Just fire all of those guys. How much would it cut the budget? You got to financially incentivize the police, where if your record is clean and you're doing work that's advancing the agenda of law enforcement, you know, I don't know enough about it to set these, you know, hallmarks or whatever we would call them. But somebody could. They could figure that out. There was another guy at that protest named Pete. And I had it in that tweet. I don't remember off the top of my head. New York City communities for something. Here's a TRX off to fight a Raptor. Yeah, you can hear it. Pretty serious supercharger in that. But yeah, this guy's part of a nonprofit. Big Pete came and told me, you better get out of here, in a pretty threatening way. Oh, do I want to traverse this gauntlet of criminal maniacs who are here every day selling criminal wares and are probably going to start recognizing me and try and beat me up? NYPD driving a Mercedes, so they're making money. Maybe that guy with the Mercedes is in charge of overseeing all this criminal enterprise. I think it's a merger of Chinese crime and African nationals in the sales positions. It just seems obvious. The police don't want to fight that. They want to stop me from informing people of what's going on. They want to enable these riots. So, okay, I've got this theory that the police have placed a guy's spitting in the street here. So the police have placed a gang member. Here, look at this. We got Chinese guys overseeing the African guys. That's what's going on there. The Chinese guys import the counterfeit goods. The African guys sell them on the street. All these weird shops down here in Chinatown that appear to be selling junk are doing that in their retail space and seem to be warehousing these counterfeit goods. Why that gets allowed to happen, I can't answer, but I've observed it for long enough to understand that that clearly seems to be what's going on over there. So why would the police insert a Venezuelan gang member into a riot at FIT? You know, it's hard to say. People often ask me these type of questions. I might observe an array of evidence in the public domain, come to a particular conclusion. You might see that same evidence and draw a different conclusion. So motivation, hard to explain. We start to get into speculating, and we can do that, but I don't really know. So let's look at a couple of other examples. We've seen a lot of evidence that the police are protecting other criminals who appear at these riots. Crackhead Barney, Orrin Levi. I call them criminals because they've done things to me that seem to be crimes. Levi has stalked me around the city, cyber harassed me with emails and tweets. Crackhead Barney sexually assaulted me with a turkey baster that she had inserted into her horrible, disgusting smelling vagina. I mean, that's so outrageous to me. Any man doing anything remotely similar to that to a woman would surely and rightfully be arrested quickly, but the cops refuse to do anything. Same thing with George's brother. The guy's been cyber stalking and harassing me for 7 years. Now he's harassing and cyber stalking and through the mail harassing my parents. Cops won't do anything. Why is that? So let's presume that I'm correct, that the cops are to some extent orchestrating these things. Maybe the Max Pub incident is the best example, because it really does seem like that was staged, and we can surmise that their motivation might have been in that early stage of the pandemic when they weren't sure how people were going to react. They might have said, well, gee, you know, closing down restaurants, that's a big deal. You're going to start to threaten people's livelihoods. Individual restaurant operators might decide to defy the lockdown and keep their restaurant open. How do we stop that from happening? Well, perhaps their plan was stage a fake defiance and then make it look like the restaurant owner is getting smashed hard, but he'll really be an actor, a guy working for the cops, and nothing will happen to him. And 2 years later, when the lockdown is lifted and all these restaurants are out of business, we'll absolve that Danny Presti of any of the felonies that he was charged with, expunge them from his record, and mission accomplished. None of these other restaurants defied our lockdown. So I don't know, maybe there's a similar approach to these college campus riots. Perhaps the police believe if they control them, or at least certain portions of them, it gives them an opportunity to control the narrative like they're trying to do down there at the courthouse. So what do I mean? Well, there's this person, Olia Scootercaster, who I always had a pretty positive impression of. I don't really know her. I've seen her around over the years at a bunch of these different things. But to tell you the truth, I did start seeing her first right around the same time I started seeing Orrin Levi and Manny Grossman at those New York freedom fighter, things where Johnny Tobacco's girlfriend, Cara, invited Desmond D. Money to join the speakers and speak on behalf of BLM at an event that was clearly pro-police and anti-BLM. And it's just so many things about what those individuals did seem so obviously staged. And in reviewing the videos, my videos, that George's brother has so aggressively tried to remove from the internet. Again, I encourage people to subscribe on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. I've put more of the legacy videos on there, and more of them have survived on there than any other platform. So if you want to go back and review some of this stuff, it's free to subscribe to Odyssey. You can also sponsor the show on there by becoming a member. The most economical way you can do that is on Odyssey for $3 a month and a nominal 58-cent Odyssey fee. Odyssey is promoting on Twitter that they're about to create some sort of decentralized anti-censorship functionality. I can't say that I yet know what that's going to do or how it's going to work, but they have definitely articulated what makes their platform unique. It's not just calling it a free speech platform. Obviously, we've heard Twitter say that. We've heard Rumble say that. But that doesn't seem to be true. Rumble had some kind of relationship with Devin Nunes, the CEO of Truth Social, and his former attorney, the stroked out criminal Stephen Biss. I think he's still alive as far as I know. But yeah, there was a whole cloud agreement between Truth Social and Rumble. And Truth Social and Rumble don't seem to be platforms on which Crowdsource the Truth can grow at all. It's funny, I remember Laura Loomer telling me, might have been at a just in private at a dinner we were having, that she was lamenting the fact that her Rumble channel never seems to grow. I probably would have told her it was a manipulated platform, but shortly after that, Laura got a show on Rumble. You know, Rumble will, depending on who you are, Russell Brand, Laura Loomer, David Freiheit, they'll kind of like promote your show. What's his name? Glenn Greenwald, Tulsi Gabbard even. We heard these people got 6 figures to do shows that were exclusive to Rumble. And it seems like Laura's Rumble channel grew a lot after that. So perhaps if Rumble likes you, it's a good platform, but just like any of these other platforms, if you aren't talking about what they want you to talk about, you get suppressed. Same thing with X. I do need to do a counter Lawfare show about what's going on in Goodman versus the city of New York, where I've also sued the NYPD, X Corp, and Elon Musk, and Adam Sharp. Rightfully so. He is a scumbag involved in criminal activity and very probably some sort of asset to the CIA. Based on evidence that I've seen in the public domain, I could be wrong. I haven't proven these things in court, but this is what I think is happening. And he hasn't denied any of it. He's just working very diligently to make it impossible for me to sue him. Isn't that interesting? So the other thing I wanted people to understand about Lawfare is that it just falls into the category of the types of things these guys are always doing. And when I say these guys, my first entree to all this was Robert David Steele. And what did he do? He goes to something credible or powerful or whatever, like the Nobel Prize. They've built up the notoriety of that, such that if someone tells you, oh, this guy's a Nobel Prize winner, it's like, ooh, wow, he must know something. Kind of like saying somebody went to Harvard Law School. You know, if you tell someone, oh, my lawyer went to Harvard, versus, oh, my lawyer got their degree from the University of Phoenix online, people start to form an opinion. So Robert David Steele, he said he was nominated for a Nobel Prize, but that is something that cannot be verified. I went to the Nobel Institute in Oslo, Norway, after having several phone calls with them, and went all the way up to the president of that stupid thing's office and his receptionist or executive assistant or whatever, and the ultimate thing that they came to was, yeah, we are not going to tell you. We don't release the names of people who have been nominated for 50 years. And it's also a very not transparent nomination process where you seemingly can nominate yourself, or maybe if you know one person who knows a person that, you know, bottom line, the documents that Robert David Steele relied on as, you know, proof of his nomination contained metadata that indicated that he created the documents himself. So these guys, they go to whatever is credible and has power, and they try to co-opt it. Same thing with Harvard Law School, by the way. Same thing with all of Harvard. You know, we've found out now that Claudine Gay, who was the president of that prestigious thing, is just a loser and a liar who got elevated to that position because she was willing to lie and further the careers of other losers for an improper purpose. So that's what's going on with Lawfare, you see. Criminals and pimps like Norm Eisen and his associates George Conway and Andrew Weissman and all of the peripheral idiots around them with their social media accounts, their Twitter accounts that are echoing what these people are saying. You know, they're all allowed to grow to hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter, and people see, ooh, former US attorney, Harvard Law School, this person obviously must know something. And here they are retweeting Norm Eisen, retweeting Andrew Weissman. Who is this? Crowdsource the Truth with 900 viewers, 5,000 viewers. You know, if Crowdsource the Truth went from 120,000 subscribers on YouTube to 580,000 subscribers, you know, that was 2020 that I was at 120K. If they had left it alone and it had grown, think about the clout that Crowdsource the Truth might have. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. might be knocking himself out to come on the show and explain his brainworm rather than his rude media people being fucking assholes as they were. And his lawyers. Isn't that an impressive looking, what's going on here? Ducati. But, yeah, so what Lawfare is attempting to do is to co-opt the considerable power of the United States justice system, the courts. You know, somebody gets a conviction against you. Somebody gets a conviction against you, and there are powerful forces, the police, guys with guns. Think about that, how everything changes, you know? If somebody fraudulently sends the police to your house, as has happened to me, you could get shot. And then if that happens, the police are just going to say, oh, whoops, that was a mistake. What's going on here? Is that somebody famous? So this is what these weasels do. And so for the legal pundits out there who can't understand what's going on because this is just going to get overturned, it doesn't matter. What these guys are trying to do, first of all, yes, get Trump convicted so that they can then introduce all kinds of other legal challenges to convicted felons running for president, or just to get the public, you know, court of public opinion value out of that, where they can say, oh, you can't vote for Trump, he's a convicted felon. But also, this is how they write history, right? Fake news becomes fake history. So if they succeed in this stipulated reality, this criminality, then forever they can say Donald Trump is the first US president to be convicted of a felony, and they smear his legacy. And 100 years from now, you know, this is what they were trying to do to Nixon, right? The CIA knew that Nixon knew a lot about how the CIA operated and what happened to JFK. And there was clearly some sort of power struggle going on between the office of the president and the CIA. And they just figured out a clever way to force Nixon out in a way that prevented him from saying anything about the stuff that he knew, or robbed him of any credibility those statements might have had, by just politically putting him in a position where nobody trusted him, nobody liked him, and that's what they're trying to do. Norm Eisen is literally sacrificing his legal career over this. You look like Norm Eisen. Do you know Norm Eisen? Anybody ever tell you you look like Norm Eisen? You don't have to touch me, that's not a good idea. What's with people who think they should touch people that they don't know? That's weird. Don't friggin' touch people. Like, crazy people, when you get into arguments with them, are waiting for you to touch them, even as slightly as that guy just did, so that they can punch you right in the face, and then they'll tell the police, oh, he touched me. And from a technical standpoint, it's true. Warren Weaver Hall. This is where I took my first animation classes back in the 90s. It's a science building or a math building, and at the time, that was the only place that NYU had Silicon Graphics computers. I mean, this was a different era. Now they have a whole interactive telecommunications program, and I think Silicon Graphics is way out of business. Maybe Sun Microsystems bought it, and I think that's out of business too. I don't remember exactly what happened there, but this is what they're doing. Because they are cowards and weak, they need to co-opt legitimacy from things that are powerful and strong. And it's sickening. There's nothing worse than being beaten by a weak cheater. That's George's brother. And that's why he's not beating me. He's a weak cheater and he's stupid. Now look at this. So this is where there was a whole encampment the other day. This is NYU. We still smell the paint drying on this. And so now, oh, because it's the graduation. So they have this all set up to prevent lunatics from rioting. That's why that area was closed the other day. So NYU is obviously implementing a campus-wide increase in security, or whatever they want to call this. And it would seem that that is what was going on the other day when I was trying to walk through that park. And those guys are too stupid to remember a complicated script, so they just tell them there's a riot. Tell people that. But yeah, that's basically that. I don't know if we're going to get an opportunity to speak to Norm Eisen, but the guy's a Lawfare pimp peddling trash. And so he's going to go on the news, and no matter what happens, you know, Stormy Daniels, I only listened to a portion of it. Actually, you can't hear it because it's just people in there live tweeting. It's at the judge's discretion if a New York State court proceeding can have cameras in there or not, and this judge decided not to allow it. I don't think that should be the case. I think that you should have to have cameras in the court. It's a public proceeding, and these judges are given way too much discretion, and they develop this attitude that they are, you know, the kings or queens of their little fiefdoms in there. These courtrooms, they really treat them like their personal star chambers. And I hope that people don't get the opportunity to firsthand witness the type of stuff that I have. But when a cowardly, evil, petty little tyrant like Valerie Caproni is given power over people, their psychotic tendencies can really be seen. She is such a sick woman. She deserves to be impeached. Now, George's brother will take what I'm saying and he'll say this is a threat. This is not a threat. This is a news broadcast where I am sharing with people my firsthand experience of interacting with this woman who's been empowered by the Constitution of the United States as an Article III judge, and that should not be. We should be able to utilize the legal process of impeaching that woman because she is not qualified to serve as a judge. And by that, I don't mean she doesn't have sufficient legal experience or a degree or all of that. I'm saying she lacks the moral character. She is a criminal, as stated by Congress, having broken the law thousands of times. And that disqualifies her from being a judge, in my opinion. My interactions with her fortify that belief, and so she should be impeached. That is not a threat, but you see, George's brother acts like he's the Norm Eisen of anything having to do with me. Have you noticed that Norm Eisen is commenting on and presiding over all of these Trump cases as if he's like the owner of a movie studio going around doing interviews about each of the movies that are coming out and are going to be very important to the future of the company. He's promoting these things. He's trying to embed thoughts into people's minds so that they have an understanding of what's going on that differs from reality. This is stipulated reality. He's going to tell you, oh, Stormy Daniels is crushing the defense. But in fact, what I heard was more contradictory statements from a prostitute who has phone calls that were played. There was a recording of a phone call between the lawyers that was played in court where it seemed to me that a message was trying to be conveyed to Trump that she's going to sue him. This was in the lead up to the 2016 election, and that prompted the payment. Now again, regular mainstream lawyers will say, oh, stick to the pleadings, right? Okay, so now we've got evidence of this tape, etc. But how can we ignore the fact that Michael Cohen shared an office with Felix Sater? And Felix Sater has been revealed since this all began. People didn't know this in 2016. People didn't know this during the election. People didn't know this right after the election. People didn't know this until 2019. But when he was testifying against Trump, Sater was an FBI asset. And he shared an office with Michael Cohen. Don't we think Michael Cohen is also likely an FBI asset? Or if he wasn't at the time, now that he's got all these felonies convicted, how do we know they didn't go to him and make a similar deal to what they did with Felix Sater and say, hey, Michael Cohen, say what we want you to say or you're going back to jail. This is the way these guys do it. And it's Andrew Weissman, all these other people beneath him. Jack Smith came in beneath Andrew Weissman to the Eastern District of New York. These guys were trained up under Valerie Caproni. She set the standard for how this was going to all work. Remember George's brother, George himself. His origin story involved that Portland Christmas tree bomber. Do you know what I just found out today? I mean, I knew this. George has written a series of stupid books, or somebody has written them for him, and he put out a bunch of books on Amazon, sort of these self-published books. And one of the topics that he's talking about is how Nazis came to the United States. And he's talking all about Operation Paperclip. I didn't know that. I don't want to buy George's books, but it's interesting that he's talking about Operation Paperclip. It seems likely that George Henry Swigert might have been part of that Operation Paperclip. It also seems likely that Operation Paperclip itself is a limited hangout. They're only telling us part of the bad news. I think a lot more Nazis have been deliberately integrated into US society for a lot longer than we've been told. And it just became so obvious after World War II. We wanted Werner von Braun to be running NASA. It just became so obvious that they couldn't hide it from people anymore, so they needed this limited hangout and the story that, well, hey, if we didn't get it, then, if we didn't snatch these Nazi scientists, the Soviet Union would, and so start to introduce some doubt, that reasonable doubt. Maybe this was okay. How do we know that all of World War II wasn't concocted to achieve the goal of what it achieved, transferring all of the world's most sophisticated technology to one power, the United States, defeating all the other powers in the world, creating this hegemonic rulership that gets to decide what countries get destroyed, what countries get built up. It builds up Israel, suppresses people in Palestine, Gaza, and creates this ongoing sort of bifurcation where you can just agitate that at any time and stoke a new fight, as they seem to be doing right now. So this is why all these people who are like, oh, Israel did 9/11. Israel destroyed the USS Liberty. That doesn't seem to answer all the questions. I'm not denying Israel's involvement in those incidents, and I'm not defending Israel. But I don't understand how people can sit in the United States of America and say, well, Israel is the deep state. But the United States has existed for so much longer than Israel has. The United States participated in the creation and the ongoing defense of Israel. And we've seen so many weird statements, like including from Robert F. Kennedy, about how he's going to support Israel no matter what. Maybe that was the brainworm talking. Stupid assholes. The cops have made me hate them by lying about me, protecting criminals, standing around doing nothing. Oh yeah, right, there was a riot going on at the new school. Maybe it's still going on. It looks like it is. So how is it going from one to the next to the next? The cops are obviously letting this happen. Excuse me, Lieutenant. I was up at FIT the other day and I was accosted by a guy who had a mask on. And I captured a frame of his face with the mask down, and he looks remarkably like a guy. I did not make a report, but you're standing right here, and I wanted to show it to you before I carry on with
We'll
it.
get a report done for you if you'd like for assault.
The police have said that to me before. Yes, he did, but I want to show you this guy because he looks remarkably like an individual. So here's the guy.
Okay.
And then the New York Post had a story that that guy was a Venezuelan gang member who was arrested and put into Rikers Island. It looks almost identical, doesn't he?
It's very similar, yeah.
What do I do about this, Lieutenant Cabrera?
If you want to make a report, we can make a report for you.
I'd like to do it right here.
Yeah. But I'll get you a unit from the 6th precinct to come over here. Just stand by right here. Let me get your ID and your.
No, I'm not going to do that.
No.
No, look into this guy.
Yeah, but we need your
The
ID
last
to get
time
the
I gave the
report.
police my ID, I got a ticket. I don't trust the NYPD. This guy, New York Post.
But I want you to understand that we can't do a report unless we know who you are. You know?
I'm giving you facts. It's in the public domain. New York Post.
We'll look into it. I'll look into that.
Yeah, you won't.
Thank you.
Fucking assholes. I'm not giving the cops my ID for anything. So the police admit the guy looks remarkably similar. I start giving them a report about this guy. The next thing you know, I'm going to get arrested. I'm going to get a ticket. They're going to give my information to that guy. Because the premise is the guy is an undercover asset for the police. So what's their issue here? It's just all the same, you know, and they've got stories coming out. They're like, oh, some nonprofit thing is, you know, teaching these students how to do this. I've identified one of the nonprofits. I've got a picture of the guy, but the police won't do anything. They want to take my information. Well, maybe if they hadn't compromised my trust in them, I might be willing to give them a report, but I'm just not going to tell them anything. The guy could open the New York Post. The guy could have said, send me that picture right now. See, the police have a built-in kind of obstruction to their process that sets it up to fail. The 6th precinct are the same losers that were unable to enforce anything in the park. That they told me when I got assaulted I should call 911, and I was assaulted right in front of the cop. So I'm not going to sit around and get abused by more police officers to help them understand who's figuring out who their undercover assets are. But there, now we have a police lieutenant agreeing. It looks remarkably similar. That's the same guy. He's a Venezuelan gang member, and he was in my face waiting to do bad violence to me, where the police would then arrest us both and say, oh, well, you know, you started it because of this and that. He was about to poke you in the eye with a flag and you touched the flag, that's larceny. They would say some stupid shit like that. So this is how they control who gets to do crime and who gets to be on the short end of the stick. Did that seem like somebody? Okay, I understand. You don't want to do that. Why don't you tell me what that Twitter account is so I can look at the evidence? They are just looking for an excuse. It's like when you call tech support for some crappy product. There's some office where all these people are sitting and somebody's looking around to make sure they're on the phone, but they don't want to actually utilize any brain power to think about what they might have to do to figure out your problem or help you. Same thing with the cops. I don't know. You know, Charles would tell us that it's a lost cause, there's nothing to be done, move to Malaysia. I don't really like that. He could be right. And maybe I'm just stubborn and stupid. And maybe the sooner I accept that and move to Malaysia, the better off I'll be. Yeah. Well, we got, I think, another week and a half or something of this Trump trial, and I'm going to continue to try to think of ways that I'd like to have a meaningful conversation with Norm Eisen, not just insult him. I want to understand what the fuck. I want to understand, I mean, I do understand. He went to law school with Obama. He was given an ambassadorship. He's obviously there to fulfill this lawfare plan and, you know, get Trump tagged as a felon, go on the news every day. They know these jurors are going to watch the news, no matter who tells them not to. You know, they should have had a mistrial, having all of this stuff. I mean, again, none of this case is about did Trump have sex with her or not. Somebody said that the defense attorney should have just said, hey, do you know anything about this payment and how it was logged in the ledger? Because they're trying to say that this was in a campaign finance violation. And the answer is no, she doesn't know anything about the Trump Organization ledger, and that's all she has to say about it. Instead, they've got her with all this prurient testimony about allegedly having sex with Donald Trump, something she's already previously said she didn't do. So even if Lee is correct that Trump paid her to lie, that's essentially what Lee was implying. And Lee will be on tonight. He had a doctor's appointment, so maybe we'll talk about this at 8. I don't want to get him pissed off, get his blood pressure up. But it was just a conclusion that he drew that was not supported by the facts. It was an opinion based on bias. Even if he's correct, if there was a sexual relationship and Trump paid her $130,000 to lie, how do we know somebody didn't pay her $150,000 to lie now? The point is, this is not a credible witness. And having her there testifying like this is just lawfare by definition. The whole thing is lawfare. The premise of it, the fact that it's able to happen, the fact that this judge is able to do the things that he's doing, and that Norm goes on CNN or MSNBC or wherever the hell he's going every day, giving his version of the facts, which are false, while Trump is under this unconstitutional gag order. Again, the same thing they did to me. I mean, I spoke about it, but it's got to be shouted from the mountaintops, because people think this is some sort of selective system that's working against Trump. No, this is the way they do it all the time. They just decide who's going to win and who's going to lose. And even if you're a loser, if they want you to win, you're going to get promoted all over the place. If you're, what is that person's name? Dylan Mulvaney, you get promoted all over the place, even though seems like most people didn't like that person. Certainly not people who wanted to buy Bud Light. But if you're doing something that people are interested in, like Crowdsource the Truth, to the extent that 120,000 people want to subscribe to it on YouTube, well, they're going to destroy that. Because they can't let something rise on its own merit. It's got to be crap that they control. Speaking of crap, do we have another defecator right here? What is going on? Yes. Just open defecation. What do you think of that? That's crazy. Cops don't mind. Yeah, I mean, listen, bird flu, pandemic, ride your fucking skateboard on the sidewalk, whatever you want to do. Take a shit. You know, whatever. But we need Jason's ID. Figure out who he is. He better get out of here. Him being present on a public sidewalk, can't have that. God, the cops are misguided. It's just terrible what's going on. It's just terrible. So yeah, I think Lee wants to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene and her failed effort to oust Mike Johnson. That'll be tonight at 8 o'clock. People can join us, become a sponsor on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We'll be talking to Lee at 8 o'clock. And I think it was kind of a bad idea for MTG to try to oust Mike Johnson. I mean, he's not good, but you know, it's like sometimes you're in a problem you just can't solve it. At least not like that. I mean, maybe if there were more time, maybe if they hadn't already ousted McCarthy, certainly if they had a larger Republican majority, it's just not going to do anything. I think at this point, the best thing they can do is just sort of like prevent any more terrible stuff from happening. What did I hear that was terrible that they passed that wasn't going to pass the Senate? Or hopefully won't pass the Senate. Anyway, I don't even remember. But we've got all this money being wasted, paying the cops to guard nonsense, preventing Trump from campaigning. Joe Biden, God, we've never been in a worse state. Everything out of business. Look at that. I don't know if people got to see Tucker Carlson interviewing Tara Reade. That's a good contrast right there. Stormy Daniels versus Tara Reade. Tara Reade was like, well, first of all, she said something interesting. She said she was a Democrat operative. I didn't know that. That makes me feel like she might be in this world of intrigue where they have people doing things to other people, and perhaps she got on somebody's bad side, and that's why all this is happening. But the point is, she's got allegations against Biden that are credible, and she had told her mother, who went on Larry King or called into Larry King or something, and even said it at the time. So it's not like this is something that just came up 20 years later because she doesn't like Biden and he's running for president. She was talking about it when it happened. I don't know, did Stormy Daniels do that? Seems like the closer you get to the incident, the more Stormy Daniels was signing letters and saying that it didn't happen. But here, we can't even hear this woman's testimony. She's been run out of town. She's in Russia. That's where Tucker was, that's where Can. Where'd the sound go? Huh, that's the first time that's happened in a long time. I just wonder if there's disruption underway. But so Tucker had to go talk to her in Russia. She's facing a similar situation to John Mark Dougan. She had to leave her family, seek political asylum in Russia. They granted it to her, she said. But, you know, she's treated like a liar. It's weird. She's treated like a liar, and a prostitute is treated like the most credible witness anybody has ever seen. This is really a perversion. I guess that was the title yesterday. You know, but these are the only words that can describe what's going on. You know, Norm Eisen is a pimp. He's turning out a prostitute. This is a lawfare prostitution operation. Look, of course this woman will say and do whatever you want if you pay her the right amount of money. I mean, that's the funny thing. Even if Lee were correct that she said what she said in that document because she was paid to say it, you're proving my point that she is an unscrupulous individual who'll do anything for money. Look at that fat bird. Sounds like a chicken restaurant. Interesting. Okay, so something's going on. Maybe the wire is just not properly situated in my pocket. What the hell is that guy up to? Let's see what's going on with this. I don't know, it should be okay. Getting some sound anomalies. Anyway, that's what I really wanted to talk to everybody about today. I was hopeful that I might get a chance to speak to Norm Eisen. I mean, I'm going to ask him, what's the deal with these phone calls that you were supposedly having with Andrew Weissman and George Conway? And Weissman has all these FBI confidential human informants like Felix Sater who are sharing offices with Michael Cohen. And there seems to be all this scheming. See, what I believe is going on is that Michael Cohen played a critical role, knew this was going to happen. He knew this was planned to happen all along. And yeah, we got some kind of sound issue. Just back. Check. Very weird. Huh. There we go. So just like that lawyer Sussman who got jammed up in the Durham prosecution. Remember, they prosecuted Sussman for lying to the FBI. He went to the FBI and he said, oh, I just want to help out the Bureau. I'm not representing a client. And he sent them all kinds of emails and stuff. Lawyers don't do that unless they want somebody to see that stuff. You can talk to a lawyer and they'll just tell you, don't email me certain things because they don't want it to ever become discoverable as evidence in the future. So when a lawyer is blatantly sending an email to the FBI rather than calling them up or saying, hey, I have something I need to talk to you about, and carefully phrasing it to keep any potentially damaging information out, I think it's fair to presume that they are planting information that they hope to see in court in the future. So emails about anything to do with this are going to be stuff that somebody like Michael Cohen wanted people to see. I think. And Norm Eisen and Andrew Weissman appear to have planned this whole entire thing, scripted it, and it's all going off the rails now. Fannie Willis, Alvin Bragg, and that's the other thing, is that he's saying how, irresponsible this was of Aileen Cannon. Meanwhile, we've got a special prosecutor who was wrongfully appointed, who's conflicted 6 ways to Sunday. When they unredacted his redacted information, it showed that he was messing around with evidence. This was absolutely an appropriate thing for Aileen Cannon to do. They're just upset that this is not another one of their lawfare judges like Valerie Caproni or any of these other judges who we've seen. It's a hell of an outfit that girl's wearing. Not much to it. That's not smart to walk around New York City like that with all these crazy people everywhere. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll continue to try to speak to Norm Eisen to whatever extent that's going to be possible. Don't forget to sponsor the show, please. Go to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. How you doing? crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. That's a neighbor of mine. Or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth.